obviously the gardener Ben, and welcome along. All organised today. We've got my tea. I'm going to be doing a little bit of seed sowing today, and I'm also going to be taking a few of your questions. So if you have any gardening related questions you'd like to ask me, don't hesitate to drop me a comment on the live stream below. Once I've done a little bit of seed sowing, I'm going to step momentarily into the greenhouse and give you a little bit of a tour about what's going on there. Nice and slow and steady start to the year. We don't want to get ourselves too excited. We don't want to be pushing stuff on a little bit too early. It's still only February. Next month is a different story. As we move into March, things will start to waken up and speed up just a little bit. But we're just enjoying the calm and the relax of February just at the moment, getting ourselves organised with one or two things. Now, first things first, I'm a little bit behind schedule. I should have sown my broad beans some time ago, and I haven't done that. So I need to just crack on with that. I'm going to be sowing this year a broad bean. This one is the Sutton. This is a dwarf variety of broad bean. They can often get a little bit too tall, and there's only two of us in our household, so we don't need very many. But my husband Mark absolutely adores shucking peas and shucking broad beans. It gives him lovely remnants of his childhood sitting at the kitchen table with his mum. So I always make sure I grow a few bits and pieces for him to shuck. So always a few beans, always a few broad beans, and always a few peas. He really likes processing those. He likes to sit at the table, put some music on, and he likes to do those on a Saturday or Sunday afternoon. So I always make sure I grow a few. I'm going to be growing mine in 3-inch cellular trays. These are reused. I reuse these every single year. These come from bedding plants, which I purchase sometimes. I don't purchase a lot of bedding plants now. I've retired from commercial gardening, but I do keep the trays for years and years and years. I'm just filling the cellular modular trays up with 100% organic, peat-free, multi-purpose compost. And once I've done that, I'm going to be sowing my broad beans. I'm going to tilt this down so you can actually see what I'm doing. Broad beans are really large seeds. I'm going to be sowing 2 per cellular tray. And with broad beans, you want to make sure that you stand the seed upright. And by upright, I mean sort of long ways down. Don't lay the seed down like that. The seed will likely to rot if you place the seed into the compost like that. So it's always best, if you can, to stand the seed upright. And all I'm going to do is simply, with my finger, push them into the soil by around about a centimetre, half an inch, something in the region of about 15 millimetres into the soil, just so they disappear. Incidentally, little tip for you. If you're growing somewhere in a greenhouse grow-up tent or a cold frame where these are likely to get eaten by mice or rats, if you have a lot of rodents about, it's best to keep these in the house until they've germinated. Keep them in the house for the bare minimum of time. And I mean, just to get them going, to stop them sitting in the soil and actually being eaten by. These are actually really packed full of protein. So the mice and the rats really like to eat these. So if you are growing somewhere you've got a bit of a rodent problem, bring them into the house. Just get them up. Just get them germinated, and then actually you can put them straight back outside into your greenhouse or into your cold frame. Just a little dressing of soil on the top of there. One more seed tray just here. And then say, well, we'll step into the greenhouse and have a look. I've got a few seeds just left here. One broken. That one's not going to germinate. Let's get rid of that. Into the rubbish bin it goes. I say, remembering to stand the seeds up as we push them down into the soil. Say, sowing 2 per cellular tray. I haven't counted these, but hopefully I've got enough seeds to finish this modular off. Looks like I have. No, I'm going to be too shy. So the last 2 are going to have to go in on their own, which is not a problem. Those ones get a little bit more space. And incidentally, if you are sowing more than one seed into one module, a little technique for you is to make sure that you put them at opposite ends, opposite corners. Never place them together in the middle. Place them as far away from each other as possible, as if you're putting 2 siblings that don't really get on particularly well in the same tray. Right, those in a moment will actually be washed. They won't be washed, they will be watered. And large seeds like this, you can actually water with a watering can, Rose, without worrying about disturbing them. Normally, if I was sowing something smaller, if I was sowing a small seed like a lettuce or cosmos, that kind of thing, I would make sure that I pre-soaked my compost. I'd actually float these modular trays into a tray of water and allow the water to actually soak up through the compost rather than actually watering them from the top. That saves you moving the seed about once you've actually worked really hard to lay the seed out in a nice, even pattern. What you don't want to do is you don't want to wash the seed everywhere. Large ones like broad beans and sweet peas and even peas, they're very, very large. They don't move around in the soil. So I can water these from the top in just a second. Right, let's have a look and see whether we have any gardening related questions this morning. Okay, so it's just one statement saying, I love gardening. I grew a giant sunflower last year to 12 feet. So 12 feet is very, very good size for a sunflower. So well done, you. And it had a large flower head. I wonder what you did with that flower head, because they are very, very tasty. I wonder if you barbecued it or whether you harvested the seeds from it or whether you actually just allowed the birds to have it, because I have actually barbecued them before with now, I can't remember what I put on it. It was butter, or it might have been some mayonnaise and paprika, and then barbecued them. A very, very tasty. Really, really nice way of doing that. Anyway, right, let's detach you from the power source and step into the greenhouse. Someone's saying they like my accent. Well, if you like my accent, do make sure that you're listening to the Gardener Ben podcast. It streams here on YouTube. There are about 55 to 60 episodes for you to listen to now. This particular week's episode features Paige, not her real name, incidentally. A really nice listen. Her story is about alcohol addiction and solvent abuse. The podcast covers many different subjects, not just gardening, although it is gardening based. There's loads and loads of different bits and pieces. So do look out for the podcast here on YouTube. Right, let's see if we can flip the camera and I can show you what's going on in the greenhouse right now. As I say, at the moment, we're starting slow and steady. No real rush. It's still only February. We're starting things nice and gently. The seed potatoes have now started to chit. They need to be in a cool, dry, and more importantly, bright position. You can see they are just starting to form their eyes, which will actually form the shoots. These are just starting to get themselves away. Space them out either in a seed tray like I have done here with my first earlies, or stand them up into egg boxes like this just to make sure that they don't roll about and they stay still. And you handle them very, very delicately from now on. And you don't want to break these eyes off, because the plant or the tuber is actually investing lots of starches and sugars into these and getting these away early. Several weeks away from being able to plant those just yet, but I have started the chitting process. Now, the border down here doesn't look particularly inspiring, I must admit. This border normally is empty, and I normally would put dahlia tubers in pots down here as I start to bring them on. This year, I thought I'd try and squeeze in an extra crop, and you can see just starting to come down here are some ranunculus. They are very, very slow, a little bit shy. One or two you can see are just starting to poke their leaves out. If I'm honest, I was hoping I was going to get a couple of bunches of flowers for my mum for Mother's Day out of these, but they are very, very slow. So mum won't be getting any ranunculus flowers from my greenhouse this Mother's Day, which off the top of my head is only about maybe 2.5 weeks away here in the UK. So it'll have to be a shop bought bunch of flowers for that. Anyway, the ranunculus have started off. They are very, very slow, looking a little bit miserable. They like a very, very cold and constant temperature. So I'm trying to make sure I open the windows here in the greenhouse. The succulent collection is looking a little bit miserable, as it always does at this time of year. I've got some century plants which I've overwintered. My larger century plants just down here. My variegated one unfortunately took a real battering at the end of last year. It got dripped on. That's what happened to it. Unfortunately, it got dripped on by some humidity in here, and unfortunately got scorched. So you've got quite a lot of work to do on that one in a couple of weeks. And you can see I'm going to be very careful because it's very spiky. I've got some beautiful little pups coming on this, which I'm going to divide off, which are very much like these. These actually came off of these two bigger ones this time last year. The bananas have overwintered. They are just starting to send out their first leaves of the season. Very upset to see that my Darwin ammonium didn't take the frost very well. I'm leaving that covered up and I'm poking around in here because under there, the stem is still nice and hard. The frost didn't get so deep that it damaged the stem. This one was launched by Surreal Succulents last year, a really, really lovely one. But I'm very, very confident I'm going to be able to bring that back. Very strange, because normally it's this little one that gets gone. I have to replace this one quite regularly. This one is called Mexican Giant. A very, very high water content in this one, but this one survived. But unfortunately, Darwin didn't. That one is a Semponium, which is very upsetting. Anyway, for those of you that are joining me for the Great Sweet Pea Grow Along, they are doing very, very nicely. We need to make sure that you're opening the vents in your greenhouse on a regular basis. The temperatures outside here in the UK are reaching anywhere between 13, 14, and 15 degrees daytime. Now, that's a nice temperature for us to be working out in the garden. I can strip down to, I don't know, I'm not going to go on a shirt, a vest, and just a little layer on top. Sometimes be able to take my hat off. However, in the greenhouse, it's 10 degrees outside at the moment. In the greenhouse, we are already up to a stable 15 degrees, which is a little on the warm side for a lot of things. So you do need to make sure that you're opening the vents in the greenhouse regularly, or just opening the door just for a couple of hours and allow things just to cool down a little bit. You don't want temperatures in here exceeding normally about 12 to 15 degrees. You want to keep it nice and slow and steady. The sweet peas will be pinched out next week. So the next update for the sweet peas will actually be this time next week. So I'm hoping that you're really enjoying the grow along. Under the heated cloche, there is life. First things to be up are the aubergines. These are sown here in the UK nice and early because otherwise they take a little bit too long to get going. So yes, we have some aubergines up. We have some basket of fire chilies. You can see those are coming up. There's 2 of those per cellular tray. We've got some more chilies down here. And I did notice a second ago over here, there we go, look, the first loofah is just starting to come up. So there are things happening in the greenhouse. Next month is a completely different kettle of fish. Next month, as we move into March, there's going to be loads and loads and loads sown, lots and lots to do. So a lot of the succulents are going to have to go outside. They're going to go into the cold frame. I'm also going to start bringing on some peonies early because I need to move my peonies ahead of schedule this year. Bringing those on just a little bit early, giving them a little bit of heat so I can start reviewing those ahead of schedule for you, and start bringing you those in April and May, because June, July, August and September are massively busy. Do look out for the next episode of the Gardener Ben podcast. It features my husband. Every time we wrap up a season or start a season, we're now ending season 3. There's always a Q&A led by my husband, Mark. So to conclude series 3, episode 20, next week we'll be featuring my husband, Mark. And then actually there's a massive announcement from myself in next week's episode. So if you are looking for some information about myself, do listen to next week. It's a very, very big, important international announcement coming next week. Right, so let's have a look. 1 or 2 questions. So 1 or 2 people saying lots of informative information about seed sowing, which is good, not a problem at all. So there's lots here on my account and lots here on my channel. It's not just roses, it's not just peonies, there's lots and lots of information it's about for you. And someone do I hybridize plants? No, I don't hybridize plants. It's something I get asked about an awful lot of the time. I'd love to. I simply don't have the space. I mean, I've got a third of an acre here, here in the garden, which is quite large according to UK standards. It's a quite large plot. However, we simply do not have the space. When we move next time round, I mean, this house was bought very much on the basis of the size of plot that we bought. We bought as much land as we could buy. Next move will have to be several acres. So the house, once again, will have to take a hit. We'll have to downsize the size. And not that the house is particularly big at the moment, but we will be having to move in the next couple of years because I simply will need more space for many more plants. So that is on the horizon for our next move. Anyway, right. Thank you very, very much for joining me this morning. I hope you've enjoyed today's seed sowing. Thank you to everybody that's joined me. I will see you all again very soon. Take care again now. Bye-bye.